Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, let me ask you something real quick. Why is it that the one woman who barely texts back, the one who doesn't smile much, the one who seems like she could take you or leave you, that's the one you lose sleep over? You ever been in that situation where you're doing everything just to get a little attention? And she's sitting there like you're just a Tuesday. You text her, she leaves you on read. You call, she ignores it. But the moment she gives you even a little bit of her time, boom, you feel like you just won the lottery. Let's be real, it ain't love, it's a trap. And tonight, I'm going to break down why men get addicted to women who detach emotionally, not just for the laughs, but for the truth. Because once you see what's really going on behind that attraction, you'll stop chasing cold hearts and start choosing what you truly deserve. So don't blink, don't scroll, because this might be the realest thing you've heard all year. Let me know if you want this in video script format or want to move on to the full speech next. Let's talk about what really happens when a man starts chasing a woman who doesn't show much emotion. At first, she seems interesting, maybe even a little mysterious. She's not clingy, she's not always available, and she definitely isn't blowing up his phone. And that right there, that's when the game begins, even if he doesn't realize it yet. See, men are wired to pursue. That's how it's been for generations. It's in the DNA. We chase, we hunt, we go after what we want. But when a woman shows interest too fast, sometimes men back off. Why? Because the excitement fades. There's no thrill, no tension. It's like playing a game you already know you're going to win. It gets boring. But when a woman is emotionally detached, when she pulls back, stays cold, or seems like she couldn't care less, now suddenly she becomes the grand prize, not because she's better than any other woman, not because she's more special, but simply because she's harder to get. And men, they can't stand to lose. It stops being about connection and starts being about the win. It's like this. Imagine you're playing a video game, and the first few levels are easy. You beat them without much effort. But then you get to one level that keeps beating you. Now, you're not even playing the game for fun anymore. You're playing it to prove you can win. That's exactly what happens in this kind of relationship. It's not love, it's ego. It's pride. It's wanting to prove something, even if you don't know what. A man will start thinking, if I can just get her to open up, if I can just get her to love me, I'll feel like I won. But what he doesn't realize is that he's already losing. He's losing peace. He's losing self-respect. He's losing time because he's focused on someone who isn't emotionally available in the first place. That kind of chase becomes addictive. Every little breadcrumb she drops, a short reply, a rare smile, a compliment once every 2 weeks, starts feeling like a reward. And the man holds on to those tiny moments like gold. He tells himself, see, she does care. She just doesn't show it much. But that's not care. That's confusion. That's inconsistency. That's emotional starvation. And let's be honest, people treat you how they feel about you. If someone really values you, you don't have to guess. You don't have to analyze every message or every mood. Love doesn't leave you wondering if it's real. But when a woman is emotionally detached, she leaves just enough space for hope to survive. And that's how the game stays alive. Men, listen close, this isn't about judging her. Maybe she has her reasons. Maybe she's been through things. Maybe she's protecting herself. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, why are you still trying to win someone who isn't even playing on the same team? The more she pulls away, the harder some men try. They start overgiving, overthinking, overcompensating. They become addicted not to the woman, but to the chase, because the chase feels like purpose. It gives them something to fix, something to earn. But the truth is, Love isn't supposed to be earned through struggle. It's supposed to be shared through effort. And here's the real kicker. Even if he wins and gets her attention, it never lasts. Because once that attention is given, the thrill fades again. It was never about connection. It was about conquest. And when the chase is over, all that's left is a man who doesn't really know why he started running in the first place. So if you're a man caught in that cycle, ask yourself this, are you chasing love or are you just chasing a win? Because if it's the second one, you might be in love with the game, not the girl. Let me know if you'd like the next keynote expanded too. There's something about a woman who keeps her distance that drives some men wild, not in a playful, flirty way, but in a serious, I need to figure her out kind of way. The less she says, the more a man wants to know what she's thinking. The more she hides her emotions, the more he wants to be the one she opens up to. That's where it starts. The belief that cracking her emotional code is somehow a victory. Men love challenges. It's part of how we're built. When something feels too easy, we assume it's not valuable. But when something feels out of reach, when it requires effort, time, strategy, we convince ourselves that it must be worth more. That's exactly why emotionally detached women can have such a strong pull. They're not giving the usual signals. They're not validating you. They're not reacting to compliments or showing interest in obvious ways. And that mystery, it turns into a mental obsession. A man might meet this type of woman and think she's different. She's not like the others. She's deep. But sometimes deep just means distant. Sometimes it doesn't mean she's got layers. It means she's not emotionally present, but men will still chase. Because the thought becomes, if I can be the one to get through to her, if I can unlock her heart, that'll prove something. And what exactly are we trying to prove? That we're special, that we're not like other men who came before us, that we're strong enough, charming enough, patient enough to earn what she doesn't give freely. The chase becomes personal. It becomes emotional labor. And it doesn't feel like a red flag. It feels like a mission. But here's where it gets dangerous. When you fall for the challenge, you stop seeing the person clearly. You start seeing her as a puzzle, a locked door, a prize. You're not in love with her reality. You're in love with the fantasy of who she might be if she lets you in. And that, if, is the bait that keeps you coming back. You start convincing yourself that every tiny bit of affection she shows is a sign of progress. A rare smile becomes a breakthrough. A compliment every 3 weeks becomes a sign that she's changing. But in truth, she may not be changing at all. She's just giving you enough to keep you invested. Whether she means to or not, she's become the object of your emotional gamble. One day hot, one day cold, and you keep holding on, thinking the next day will be the one where she finally opens up for good. Now here's the truth that hurts a little. It's not always about her. Sometimes it's about you. Because deep down, some men want to feel needed. They want to rescue, fix, or be the exception to the rule. So when a woman is emotionally distant, they see it as a chance to prove their worth. They take it as a challenge, and challenges feel familiar, especially if you grew up having to earn love or fight for attention or feel like you were never fully seen. That emotional pattern doesn't just disappear. It shows up in the kind of women you chase. But ask yourself this, what happens if you do win? If she finally opens up, are you even going to feel fulfilled? Or are you going to realize that it was never really about her? It was about the thrill of trying to win someone who never made it easy. Here's the truth. Love doesn't have to feel like a game. It doesn't have to come with guesswork, silent treatments, or emotional walls. A woman who's ready for real love isn't going to leave you guessing. She's going to show up with her heart, her effort, and her presence. You won't have to crack a code because she's not trying to hide. The challenge might feel exciting, but peace feels better. Being chosen without having to beg for attention feels better. And when you stop chasing emotional distance, you make space for emotional connection, the real kind, the kind that's mutual, healthy, and lasting. So next time you're drawn to someone who barely gives you anything, ask yourself, do I really like her, or do I just like the challenge? Because if it's the challenge you're hooked on, it might be time to walk away. Not from her, but from the part of you that thinks you have to work that hard to be loved. There's a strange thing that happens when a woman doesn't show much emotion. Some men don't see it as a red flag. They see it as power. They think she's so confident, she doesn't need anyone. She's strong, and maybe she is. But let's not confuse emotional distance with emotional strength. They're not the same thing. Some men meet a woman who's cold, who's not very affectionate, who doesn't show vulnerability. And instead of questioning it, they romanticize it. They say things like, she's just independent, or she doesn't get attached easily. That's attractive. And sure, independence is beautiful. Confidence is magnetic, but coldness, that's not confidence. That's disconnection. You see, a truly confident woman doesn't have to shut down emotionally to prove her worth. She doesn't avoid expressing care or interest just to keep you guessing. Confidence is knowing who you are, being open without fear, and not needing to play games. Coldness, on the other hand, is a wall. It's a defense. It's often coming from fear, not power. But here's the twist. Men still chase that coldness. Why? Because it looks like confidence. It gives off the impression of control. It sends the message, she doesn't need me. So if she picks me, I must be special. That's where the addiction kicks in. The idea that her emotional distance makes her more valuable. That if you can earn her attention or affection, it must mean you've done something extraordinary. That belief can be dangerous. Because now, instead of looking for connection, a man is chasing approval. He's not asking, does she care about me? He's asking, how can I get her to? It becomes about unlocking a heart that's not open and mistaking the locked door for a treasure chest. And let's be real, some emotionally distant women know exactly what they're doing. They know that by staying mysterious and hard to read, they create intrigue. They know that silence, cold responses, and emotional unavailability can make some men lean in harder, not back away. And so the cold behavior continues, not out of confidence, but out of control. Now, this isn't to say every emotionally distant woman is doing it on purpose. Some have been hurt. Some have learned that vulnerability isn't safe. Some were never taught how to be emotionally open. But none of that changes this truth. You can't build intimacy with someone who won't let you in. The problem is, when men confuse that emotional wall for confidence, they stop looking for signs of compatibility. They stop asking if this is healthy. They start thinking they have to earn softness from her, like her being distant is normal, and if they work hard enough, she'll eventually turn into someone warm and loving. But people don't transform because you try hard. They transform when they are ready, when they want to, not because you push for it. A confident woman will show care without fear. She'll express herself with balance. She doesn't need to ice you out to feel in control. She'll communicate, she'll be present, and she won't make you beg for emotional attention. But a cold woman, an emotionally unavailable woman, will make you feel like any emotional connection is a prize you haven't earned yet. And that's not love, that's scarcity. So here's the real question. Are you falling for who she is or who you hope she becomes? Are you attracted to her heart or just the challenge of unlocking it? Because if it's the second one, you're not chasing love, you're chasing fantasy. True confidence is soft when needed, strong when necessary, and always rooted in clarity. Coldness is a mask, and the longer you chase that mask, the more likely you are to end up in a one-sided relationship, one where you're doing all the emotional heavy lifting and still hoping for more. You deserve warmth. You deserve connection. And you deserve someone who doesn't make you guess how they feel. Don't mistake emotional distance for depth, because sometimes what you think is strength is just someone who never learned how to show up fully. Let's talk about value. Not real value, but perceived value. Because when it comes to relationships, especially with emotionally detached women, perception can be everything. A lot of men fall into the trap of thinking that just because something is hard to get, it must be worth more. That's how the mind works. When something is rare, limited, or difficult to access, we automatically assume it's more valuable. This is exactly what happens when a man gets involved with a woman who's emotionally unavailable. She doesn't give much. She's quiet. She doesn't open up. She keeps her distance. And because her love or attention feels so scarce, it starts to seem precious. That scarcity creates an illusion, one that makes men think, if I can just get her to choose me, I'll have something special. But here's the truth. Just because someone doesn't offer you much doesn't mean they're more valuable. Sometimes it just means they're not emotionally present, not interested, or not capable of giving what you need. But the way scarcity plays with your mind, it doesn't let you see that clearly. It makes you chase harder. It makes you work overtime for crumbs, thinking one day she'll offer the whole meal. That mindset gets men stuck in cycles. Because when she finally gives a little, when she replies to a text, gives a compliment, shows one rare moment of vulnerability, it feels huge, like a win, like a breakthrough. But really, it's just a moment, a flash, and then it's gone. And because it's gone, you want it again. Now you're chasing the next small sign of interest, hoping it'll feel as good as the last one. That's not love. That's emotional gambling. It's the same reason luxury items are marketed as limited edition. Not because they're made better than anything else, but because they're harder to get. And when something's harder to get, it feels more important. That's how some men end up confusing emotional unavailability with uniqueness. They don't stop and ask, does she care for me the way I care for her? They just keep thinking, if she's not giving herself to anyone, and she finally gives herself to me, I must be the one. But here's the problem with that thinking. It puts all the power in her hands. It makes your self-worth depend on her attention. And worse, it makes you ignore red flags. You overlook disrespect. You justify coldness. You start thinking it's your job to earn her warmth. And slowly, without even realizing it, your standards drop. What started as attraction turns into emotional labor. You become the one reaching out, making plans, initiating everything. You tell yourself it's worth it because she's different. But ask yourself, different in what way? Different because she doesn't care. Different because she doesn't show up for you. That's not special. That's emotionally unavailable. Scarcity is not a sign of value in relationships. Emotional distance doesn't make someone better. It just makes connection harder. And if you have to beg, chase, or prove your worth just to get someone to treat you with basic affection, that's not someone who's valuable. That's someone who's unavailable. Real value shows up with consistency. Real value doesn't keep you guessing. A woman who is emotionally mature and truly interested will not make you feel like love is something you have to fight for every day. She'll make you feel safe, seen, respected. The illusion of scarcity will keep you running in circles. You'll keep thinking you're close to finally getting her. But what you're chasing isn't real connection. You're chasing what she might be, not what she actually is. So if you're caught in this dynamic, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I really in love with her? Or am I in love with the idea of finally being enough for someone who never makes me feel like I am? You don't need to chase someone who gives you less just because it feels rare. You deserve someone who gives you more. Freely, openly, and without games. Scarcity doesn't make someone valuable. Consistency does. Emotional presence does. And when you stop chasing what's rare and start valuing what's real, you stop settling for almost love and start building the kind that actually lasts. Some men don't just fall in love, they fall into rescue missions. And that's exactly what emotionally detached women can trigger without saying a word. When a woman seems hurt, guarded, or distant, some men feel an intense pull. Not just attraction, but a sense of purpose. A feeling like, she's been through something, and maybe I'm the one who can fix it. Maybe I'm the one who can save her. It's not always about ego. Sometimes it's much deeper. A lot of men were raised to believe that being strong means being needed. That being valuable means being the problem solver. That love is something you prove through sacrifice and fixing what's broken. So when they meet a woman who's emotionally unavailable, that inner instinct kicks in. She doesn't share her feelings. No problem. He'll stick around until she does. She doesn't open up easily. He'll wait, support, comfort, hoping that one day she'll finally let him in. And when that day comes, it'll feel like he won, but here's the trap: that day rarely comes. And even if it does, it's often not in the way he imagined. Because fixing someone's pain doesn't always lead to love. Being there for someone emotionally doesn't always guarantee emotional return. And trying to be someone's hero can quickly turn into being someone's emotional doormat. When a man sees a woman who seems cold or distant, his mind might say, she just needs the right person. She just needs someone to show her real love. And that sounds noble. It sounds sweet. But real love doesn't require you to fix someone. Real love flows both ways. It's built on mutual effort, not emotional repair work. A man who constantly feels the need to rescue ends up pouring from his cup until it's empty. He listens, supports, stays up late trying to understand her silence. He forgives emotional push and pulls, thinking she's just scared. She just needs more time. He ignores his own needs because his mission becomes her healing. But what happens when she doesn't want to be healed? Or worse, when she doesn't see anything wrong with how she's treating him? That's when it gets painful, because now he's not just hurt. He's confused. He's done everything right, given everything he could, and still feels like it's not enough. That inner voice says, if I could just try harder, be more patient, love her better, she'd finally love me the same way back. But love built on a rescue mission is always one-sided. You become the giver, and she becomes the project, and people aren't projects. What's really going on here is a hidden belief. That love is earned through fixing, proving, and saving. That unless you're sacrificing something, it's not real. But that belief, it doesn't come from her. It comes from within, maybe from childhood, maybe from a past relationship, maybe from years of thinking that being strong means never asking for love in return. Emotionally unavailable women awaken that hero complex, not because they ask for help, but because they withhold connection. That lack of emotional safety creates an urge in some men to create it, to build a bridge over the silence, to give so much that eventually it melts her ice. But a woman who's not ready to be emotionally available won't magically become available just because you're kind, loyal, or loving. That change has to come from her, not from your effort. Being the hero might feel good in the beginning. You feel important. You feel needed. But over time, you'll start to feel tired, unappreciated, confused. And that's when it hits you. You were never in a mutual relationship. You were in a silent emotional chase. Real love doesn't make you earn basic connection. It doesn't make you work to feel wanted, and it definitely doesn't require you to fix someone just to receive affection. A healthy relationship is two people showing up, not one person carrying the weight of both hearts. You don't need to be anyone's hero. You just need to be loved by someone who sees you, appreciates you, and chooses to meet you emotionally without needing to be rescued first. Rejection is one of the hardest things to deal with for anyone, but especially for men. It's not something most men like to admit, but it's there deep down. The fear of rejection can be so powerful that it often drives a man to chase someone who shows no signs of loving him back. The emotional toll is hard to explain, but the need to be accepted, to be wanted, runs deep. And when that need meets a woman who is emotionally unavailable, it creates a dangerous loop. You see, when a man faces rejection, or even the fear of it, something happens inside. It's not just the ego that gets hurt. It's something much deeper. It's a belief that somehow, if she doesn't choose him, he's not enough. That's what makes rejection feel so personal. It goes beyond just not being liked. It becomes a reflection of who you are. And that can sting, especially if you've never dealt with that feeling of inadequacy before. So the response, you chase. You keep pursuing, hoping that one day you'll break through the walls she's put up and finally earn her affection. What makes this so tricky is that emotional unavailability is often not about you. It's about her own struggles, her own fears, or her own walls. But men, caught up in the fear of rejection, will sometimes fail to see that. They keep thinking, if I just try harder, if I just show her how much I care, I'll break through. She'll see that I'm the one. But in reality, this is a dangerous fantasy. It turns love into a project, not a shared connection. A man's fear of rejection can make him blind to reality. When someone isn't emotionally available, it's not about being hard to get or playing games. It's about not being able to give. She might not have the emotional bandwidth to commit, to open up, or to offer any kind of consistent love. But to a man who's afraid of rejection, that emotional coldness doesn't always register. Instead, he sees it as a challenge. He sees her indifference as a sign that he has to try harder, work longer, and prove that he's worthy of her attention. The constant chase becomes a way of avoiding the pain of rejection. Because if he's always in pursuit, then he can't face the possibility that she doesn't feel the same way. And the longer he chases, the harder it becomes to stop. It's like a game where he's convinced that the next move will be the one where she finally chooses him. But the reality is, the more he chases someone who doesn't feel the same, the more he risks losing himself in the process. He gets caught in the fantasy of what could be rather than seeing things as they really are. And here's the kicker. The more a man chases someone who is emotionally unavailable, the less likely he is to realize that he's rejecting himself in the process. By constantly giving more, sacrificing his own needs, and seeking validation from someone who doesn't reciprocate, he's slowly teaching himself that his worth depends on someone else's approval. This sets up a dangerous dynamic where a man becomes so focused on winning someone over that he stops seeing what he actually needs. He's not looking for true connection anymore. He's looking for validation, and that's not love. The fear of rejection can keep a man stuck in this cycle for a long time. The idea that if I just try one more time, maybe she'll change her mind is powerful. But over time, that thinking can wear a person down. The emotional labor of constantly seeking someone who isn't emotionally available can drain you, leaving you with little to offer when someone who is available comes along. You might be so focused on winning over the one who's distant that you miss the chance to connect with someone who's emotionally present, someone who is actually ready to meet you halfway. And that's where the real tragedy lies. The longer you chase someone who's emotionally unavailable, the more you rob yourself of the chance to experience love that's mutual, fulfilling, and real. True connection isn't about proving your worth to someone else. It's about two people choosing to be there for each other, being emotionally open and available without the fear of rejection looming over them. Rejection will happen in life. It's inevitable. But what matters is how you handle it. The key is to remember that rejection from one person doesn't mean you're not worthy of love. It just means that person isn't the right match for you. So instead of chasing someone who doesn't love you back, start focusing on loving yourself first. Because when you stop chasing, you give yourself the chance to find someone who will choose you without hesitation. And that, my friend, is the kind of love worth waiting for.